Hello, everyone, and welcome to Your Health in Your Hands. I'm Dr. David Achibade with the Brain and Body Foundation. Now, September is the Sickle Cell Disease Month, or Sickle Cell Disorder Month. I think we're supposed to use the word disorder these days. But September is the Worldwide Sickle Cell Disorder Month, and we are going to have a couple of shows for you as regards to that. As you know, the Nigerian government has authorized and deputized and indeed mandated us to address sickle cell disease in Nigeria. As you know, also, Nigeria is number one in the world, not only in terms of numbers, but in terms of severity. The problem is still this: over 100,000, we have 150,000 being born every year, over 100,000 die before their fifth birthday, 50 to 75%. That is a tragedy. That should not be, especially with all the smart doctors, smart healthcare professionals, smart people in that country, in our country. We should not let this continue to happen. So part of what we're doing under the authority, like I said, of the government, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to kick off a research project we're hoping to do in 3 hospitals in 3 states: Abuja, Lagos, and Ekiti. Ekiti being my state of origin. It seems only fitting that we do it there. We're still pushing. If you know anybody in the Ministry of Health at Ekiti State, please reach out to them. We're trying to get this thing going. Thankfully, Lagos State has agreed. Thank you, Health Commissioner, and thank you, Dr. Akinshete of the National Sickle Cell Foundation, who has been helping us with getting this on the road. So hopefully in September we'll get it done. And of course, we're looking to Abuja to get it done as well. The end game, the end goal is that doctors and healthcare professionals, nurses, and so on, who are treating children with sickle cell anemia, sickle cell disorder, include, and this is, we're very strong about this, we've been working on this now for about 4 years now, include as part of the routine medications, supplements that will help to strengthen their immune system. We have proven this over and over and over in our centers, that simply strengthening the immune system of these kids, especially those below the age of 6, can significantly improve their health and, of course, address that terrible number of 50 to 75% dying before the age of 5. So that's what we're aiming for. But that's not the only thing we're doing when it comes to sickle cell disease. We're also raising funds to get supplements so we can give to those in the remote areas. Now, over here in the US, we're partnering with an organization called Tackle Sickle Cell and also Embrace Kids Foundation. We're working with twins. They are in the National Football League, not soccer, but football. They're extremely wealthy, but their aunt died of sickle cell disease. So it's been a passion for them to help to support individuals with sickle cell disease. So they're going to match our fundraising up to the tune of 25,000. So we have potentially, we can raise 50,000 to buy supplements and nutritional supplements and nutraceuticals for individuals in remote areas. And of course, probably the most important thing that we're doing is the whole education, which is kind of like what we're doing on TV now. Of course, we're on Instagram and the other social media platforms, giving out tips, working with other healthcare professionals, working with other parents and health care providers of individuals with sickle cell disorder. And as a matter of fact, on our show today, we have one of such people. I'll introduce to her briefly, and then she'll say a few more things about herself. She is the parent of a 9-year-old son who has sickle cell disorder, and she's had a very interesting journey trying to take care of him. She's also going to be talking about tips and how parents like her, especially in Nigeria and around the world, who have kids with sickle cell disorder, can better take care of their kids. So it is with great honor and pleasure that I welcome on the show Fumi Vanessa Ulam. Welcome to the show, Fumi.
Thank you very much, Dr. David. It's a pleasure to be here. The introduction was really inspiring to know that you have been able to gain the support and the allies of such influential people so far. Really, as the mother of a child with sickle cell, all we want is to know that people are there to help us. So thank you for your work. It's truly an honor to be part of this discussion. So I'd just like to introduce myself and say my name is Fumi. I am the mother of a 9-year-old boy. He has sickle cell, SS. And so I'm currently based in London in the UK. I'm the mum of two, actually. So Eli is my firstborn. For me, when I received the diagnosis, I have to say it changed our world, completely turned everything around. And to this day, I can remember that feeling, being in the consultant's office and being given the diagnosis. It has to be one of the hardest moments of my life because I had heard of sickle cell, but I didn't know enough. And I believe that as well, I wasn't aware until actually I was pregnant. I had the sickle cell trait. So I was suddenly thrown into a world that I was not prepared for. And I think being a mother as well, a mother to your first child, it's a journey that no one can prepare you for. There's no manual for a new mom, but even harder, there's no manual for the mother of a child with sickle cell. So immediately, I remember I just burst into tears in the office of the consultant, and I just didn't know where to turn, what to do, what to think. And I remember my mother was with me at the time, and she said, don't cry. And the Nigerian spirit of my mother were Yoruba, so it was like, don't cry. So immediately I just began to think, okay, all right, I'm not going to let this thing drown us. You can either sink or you swim. So I think in that moment I decided that, okay, I need to know everything about sickle cell. I need to ensure that he has the best quality of life that I could give him, So I left the office. Obviously, I was afraid. But one thing with me is I always try as much as possible to be positive about the situation. Now, what I knew about sickle cell is that it's very different for every person. There are people that may never have a crisis, and there are some that are, crisis all the time. So I decided that I would think of the way forward for my son, the best way to give him the best quality of life. So that was my mindset from day one was, okay, how can we fight this? How can we not be a statistic? And that has never left me. And I think, in the moment, having that mindset has really helped how we've coped with sickle cell. With our son, we're now 9 years down the line. So we have 9 years experience of living with this condition. And truly, it can be very challenging. It's given us many dark moments where we've wondered how we're going to get out of this, especially those times in hospital with a crisis, with a young child. Wow, it's an emotional journey, but all through everything, I held on to my faith, and I held on to the fact that I would research everything there was to do with sickle cell, and that we would not be a statistic.
One thing that stands out, of course, there's quite a few that stand out, but one thing that stands out is that many times people think that it's only the uneducated, the unexposed that don't know about their genotype, and they feel that, oh, these people should have done the test and all that. But I'm assuming you were in the UK when you got pregnant, right?
Yes,
so
correct.
So genotype is not something they routinely test in a primarily white country. Or was it when you got pregnant that you tested?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So in other times when you went to the hospital, you probably didn't know that you had a genotype. You had the trait. And same thing in Nigeria. I mean, it's mind-boggling sometimes when you see more people who didn't know. So, but I think that's changing now. They're beginning to say, okay, mandate genotype testing when you go to schools, and when you're going to be admitted into a school, or when you're going to get married, for instance, and all those things. They're beginning to mandate those things, but there's still a long way to go. So, I mean, just for people to know that this could happen to anybody and everybody, especially if you're in a foreign country. So people should not blame themselves, quite frankly. But we'll take a break now, and we'll be right back.
Jason McCordy here. Devin and myself started our Tackle Sickle Cell campaign about 10 years ago, and over the past decade to go towards local organizations and families dealing with sickle cell disease. It has always been a dream of ours to organize a mission trip in Africa. Project Nigeria has finally given us an opportunity to do so. With one of the largest concentrations of kids with sickle cell disease, this gives us a great opportunity to really create change. There are hundreds of thousands of little kids dealing with sickle cell, and what's even crazier is the mortality rate by age 5 is over 50%. This just breaks my heart, and we can do something about it. Devin and myself are going to match. Please give and please help us create change in the sickle cell community around the world.
Okay, welcome back, folks. I'm here with Vanessa Ulam. She was a mother of a 9-year-old son with sickle cell anemia, and we are talking about some of her experiences and some of the tips, and not just she has learned through her experience taking care of her son. Hopefully, things that you can apply wherever you are in the world. So, you mentioned a couple of things about being in the hospital and having to take care of your son. And I'm pretty sure in the hospital in the UK that they don't have as much experience treating sickle cell disease. I mean, can you run us through some of the experiences you had and what some of the valuable things you learned?
So it's a great question. Very early on, I was told, when he's 6 months, he will begin to have the crisis. So immediately I think I rebuked it. I said, no, my son won't. And I was just so sure that I didn't want to see my 6-month-old baby in pain. So I just maintained that mindset. And I think I was blessed and lucky that he didn't have any pain until he was around just after 2, when we saw the impact, and sickle cell showed us really what sickle cell is. He was in pain. And I remember we were in the hospital, he was screaming, crying. He would not want to be left alone. I was holding him, for nights upon end, no sleep. And that was when I felt really alone, as in, because the doctors struggled to get the pain under control. And when a child is so young, and things like getting a vein for a blood test or the cannulation, all of those things are very difficult. So that's when I felt powerless. And I think any mother would, any parent would, to watch a child screaming in agony and there's nothing you can do. I mean, I can never forget that feeling. So this continued, he would have crisis after crisis, where we would, and it was always in the night. So we'd find ourselves packing up, rushing around the house in the night, running to the A&E. And then from there, we'd be admitted. And the procedure was always the same, obviously blood test to check the HB level, blood test to check for whether there's an infection, spleen checks, and then, the appropriate course of action depending upon the results. Typically for Eli, it was very rarely because of infection, and it wasn't ever because of spleen. He just would have painful crisis. And
you didn't know what the triggers were for that?
I couldn't identify the triggers, although, we were living in the UK, we still are in the UK right now, and the weather, when I look back, I know that from October onwards, we would have crisis. In fact, my birthday and his birthday falls within the winter periods, and I can remember that we were never able to solidify any dates for any celebrations because of what might happen, and it was always that period. So triggers were weather. They say extreme cold, extreme heat, any weather changes.
Or rapid changes in temperature. Yeah,
exactly. And then I believe as well overexertion. And I also believe, cold water, swimming, although he didn't swim, but I can remember sometimes on holiday where a crisis was triggered. But looking back now, I truly believe that diet had a big impact. So I had no idea about the fact that a child with sickle cell has greater than average nutritional requirements. In my opinion, I think that we need to be very mindful of things like, vegetable oil, sugar. What we're feeding the body can really dictate, how much inflammation there is in the body.
Right.
And, pain is caused by inflammation. So I wasn't paying attention to any of those things. I had no education around those things. So looking back, now that I've made changes to what he eats, I can see a difference. So so I would say you asked about triggers, doctor. So trigger, I think definitely a poor diet isn't going to help a child with sickle cell.
Right, definitely. And I'm glad you talked about inflammation, because that is an extremely important aspect that people don't talk about like they should, in my opinion. And food, you mentioned vegetable oils. Somebody would be shocked if they heard you say vegetable oils. Everybody thinks, well, vegetable, right? So vegetables are good for you. So if the oils from vegetables are good, they should be good for you too as well. But that isn't so. Why do you think that's not so? Or why do you say that's not a good thing?
Sorry, the opinion that vegetable oil comes from vegetables?
The opinion that vegetable oil is good for you, because I think you were saying that vegetable oils and sugar and other things are not good for children with sickle cell disease. So Can you explain why vegetable oils could be a bad thing?
Because of what it does to the blood and what's contained within vegetable oils. And I believe that we don't always know of the alternative. You know what you know. So until somebody says, actually, this is bad for you. I mean, the same thing with sugar. I think the world is waking up to the fact that sugar isn't great for the body. But until you actually don't know. So, there's ignorance there, which I think a number of people are guilty of, but that's just the way it's been. I think now people are focusing more on, health, wellness, holistic ways of living. But I had no idea at the time.
Right. The thing with vegetable oils is that once they get heated, obviously when we fry and when we cook, the vegetables oils get heated, especially canola oil. And I'm trying to remember which are the other ones that are people think are healthy. What happens is that the heat changes their constitution and makes them more chemically active in certain ways that can, once taken in the body, they can set up inflammatory chemicals in the body. And of course, these inflammatory chemicals are carried around in the bloodstream. If they're in the bloodstream, that means they're affecting the lining of the blood vessels. They're also affecting the red blood cells themselves, which of course are where the sickle cells are. And the environment in which these red blood cells is so crucial. We'll probably talk about this in subsequent media episodes, but the environment that red blood cells find themselves. If there's more infection in the environment, if there's, like you said, heat, if the channels, the arteries, the veins through which these red blood cells pass, if they're not open enough for them to move freely through and they get stuck, that again could trigger the blockage and crisis of sickle cell disease. So vegetable oils, then getting back to vegetable oils, that frying of these oils, cooking of these things to high temperatures could cause a problem in the body that can trigger a crisis by way of inflammation. So it's a good thing you brought that up. We're going to take a quick break at this point, and then we'll be right back.
What's up, everybody? Devin McCourty here. I know Jason just gave you the full rundown of Tackle Sickle Cell, which we started about 10 years ago. He told you how we've raised about $2 million in total, and all of this started from our family member, our Aunt Winnie, who had the sickle cell disease. And, starting Tackle Sickle Cell Foundation and campaign in New Jersey, then it's been in Boston, Nashville, Cleveland, now it'll be in Miami as well. We've always had a dream of going somewhere else and doing a mission trip. And Project Nigeria is that. And Jay told you to give people some of the simple things we have right here in America that people with sickle cell have. So please hop on, jump aboard. Let's help make a huge difference with Project Nigeria and continue to change the life of people with sickle cell. Thank you and appreciate your support.
All right, welcome back, folks. I am here with Fumi Vanessa Olam, and we are talking about things that can help your child, if you have one, with sickle cell anemia. And so we were talking about, but before we came back on air, we're talking about things like milk and certain kinds of cereals that you've decided to modify because of what you've experienced. Can you just run us through some of those things, plus the supplements that you've also been using to help yourself?
Sure, doctor. Yes, I can do that. So I really focused upon what he's eating. I removed sugar immediately. You know, here in the UK, we have tea, coffee, sugar. You have the jars for them. I literally threw the whole sugar jar away to avoid the temptation. Yes, so there's none in the house.
Wow.
I did substitute that with a natural, good quality honey, which he can have some. But you know, the sugar addiction, and I'll say it's an addiction, I know wasn't helpful, so we got rid of that drastically. Then cereals, you know, we he used to take a lot of like Cocoa Pops or cereals that have a lot of sugar in them. So I would make sure that I had to tell him that, look, this is not good for you. This has sugar in it. We're going to have to modify these things. So I went on to more of, you know, porridge, oats, for example, and like wheat-based products for his
So
breakfast.
let me get this right. You give porridge and oats without sugar and without milk?
He would have it with a dairy alternative. Yes, the oats. And then as for sweetener, there are things like fruits that I add, you know, like strawberries, blueberries, a bit of honey, and he got used to that.
Okay.
So one of the things that I really believe is the smaller the child is, you know, you introduce these things from a very young age, because it's very difficult when your child is 6 or 7. They've been eating sugar their whole life, and then you now say no more. So that's where I had the difficulty. So anyone that I'm talking to now, if you're the parent of a child with sickle cell, from a very young age, pay attention to the diet, because you won't struggle when they're older, because they're used to that.
It's interesting how many of the things you're saying are things that we also tell our parents of children with autism and other learning disabilities.
Oh,
It's like
really?
the exact same principle: avoid sugar, avoid milk, avoid some of the other preservatives, processed foods, fried stuff. And I know it's hard on the kids. Oh man, I feel so much for them, especially when they see their siblings or their friends eating the same thing that they can't eat it. I mean, it's heartbreaking sometimes to see them go through all the pain and the grief of seeing all these things happen. But you've got to do what you got to do.
I have to acknowledge the fact that you are doing this, and those parents are really lucky to have that direction from you, because I feel if I had that myself way back then, things probably would have been different for us. And I also feel that it's you mentioned siblings having something different. Unfortunately, this is a lifestyle change for the whole family. You can't just expect only that child to be making these changes. You know, the parents have to make the change, the siblings. So it's a lifestyle family, you know, goal. You have to do it together. So.
And that's good that you have your husband's support in this whole thing too. That's fantastic. But we kind of run out of time now, but I do want to just throw in here. I know you mentioned supplements. And we always talk about this for sickle cell, especially the younger age groups. We've seen such dramatic results. Once we give higher doses of vitamin C powder now, we use the powder, and then of course vitamin D and of course zinc. The three things you hear about, or you've been hearing about with COVID-19. We've seen that they can make a huge difference, especially in the younger age group. And so I want to just encourage people that as you are making these dietary changes for your kids, also consider adding things, supplements like that. And of course, they are more expensive immune support supplements, some of which we're going to be using for this research that I mentioned earlier on. And of course, if you want to know more about this research, please go to our website. It's brainandbodyfoundation.org. And there are too many parents and too many kids who are suffering, and they're just going around and round in circles. They are lost in the dark, so to speak. And for me, if you had maybe an online resource that walked you through what to do and what not to do when it comes to sickle cell disease, who knows? Things would probably have been a lot better. It's like you had to really search and figure things out for yourself. as much as possible. So hopefully we'll be able to help change that. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And so only because of people like you that we can do this. So thank you. With that, folks, we're going to shut this one down, and then be sure to stay tuned next week for our continuation of this discussion with me. God bless. Stay healthy. Have a great rest of the week.